Mark Rogers TV back with you, continuing to wrap up National Signing Day reports. We go to Kansas State with Gracie Terrell from Bring on the Cats. Gracie, this is the first time you've been on Mark Rogers TV. We appreciate you coming on board.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very good stuff. So before we get to the nuts and bolts of 22 commits and signees with the Wildcats coming in, the Spicy Boys, you got to give us the background on that. It's a cool nickname, and it's what we need to get in on this one.
Yeah, the Spicy Boys, perfect nickname for this class. It's probably one of the best recruiting classes that we've had in a long time. The first thing that came to mind when I was looking at interviewing these guys, I don't really connect with high schoolers today. So I was like, let me just do a little bit of digging on Twitter. And I noticed that Ben Adler, one of our commits, was in a Blazin' challenge at Buffalo Wild Wings where you eat really spicy wings. And he beat his friend. So I was like, all right, that's interesting. And I looked at his Twitter profile and it said #SpicyBoys with a Z on it. And I'm just like, what is this? And I searched the hashtag and it popped up a bunch of our other commits. So I had to ask them, I'm like, what does this actually mean? And they refer to themselves as the Spicy Boys. So it's an interesting nickname. I think it's going to stick simply because everybody seemed to really enjoy it when we were talking about it on bringonthecats.com for our signing day preview. So I think it's hilarious. And you don't really get a lot of that entertainment out of, a Bill Snyder class because they're mostly very humble and soft-spoken guys. So having a little bit of flair coming into National Signing Day was definitely fun.
Yeah, Gracie, when you mentioned it to me before we came on, I immediately, as a very uncool guy, marked down Spicy Boys without the Z. I used the S. Of course I did. But
it's okay. It happens.
So you got 22 signees for the Wildcats. You mentioned it being a highly touted class in comparison to some of the past recruiting classes brought in by K-State, but still by national standards and based on the level of play that the team typically produces on the field, coming off a fine 9-4 season, it's just amazing to me to continue to see winning teams come out of these type recruiting classes. So if you can kind of run down some of those guys that we may see as impact players starting maybe as early as this fall.
Yeah, we have a lot of openings on defense simply because, Jordan Willis going into the draft, Elijah Lee declaring for the draft. There's going to be a lot of guys that come in immediately and make impacts. One of them was Elijah Walker that formerly committed to K-State and then retracted that and decommitted from K-State, opening up his recruiting process again. And he just really, as a safety, is going to be able to help us out a little bit more in the secondary because we didn't have a strong secondary. We had a lot of times where we would just get completely ran through, and he is actually out of a JUCO at Cerritos College, I believe, and he was a 3-star recruit, but getting him persuaded to be back onto the K-State side was impressive because TCU also had offered him, and he was leaning more towards that side, but really what ended up swaying him, in my opinion, was the Texas A&M and K-State Texas Bowl. And he had tweeted out, wow, that was really eye-opening. And I'm sitting here like, all right, so, hey, our bolt performance actually worked in our favor for once because, well, first we won, but it was really dominating overall. And it kind of just shows how a young team under Bill Snyder can develop and play up to a little bit higher than they were originally rated.
Yeah, Gracie, you mentioned the performance on the field in postseason play against a Texas A&M team that's been recruiting in the top 10 range. And this is what amazes me about K-State in particular, almost unlike any other program in the country. Since Bill Snyder came on the first time and obviously built the program the first time and then came back and picked up right where he had started the first time. This is a program that at worst is reaching bowl games and at its pinnacle finishes in the top 10, goes to major bowl games, and somehow does it with classes like this one right here. 21 3-stars, no 4-stars, no 5-stars, according to 24/7 Sports, and the 60th rated class. So this class is surrounded by the likes of Cincinnati and Memphis and those kind of schools, not in the Power 5, but they continue to win on the field and beat big-time opponents. It's just pretty amazing.
It is. And to have this class saying it's one of the best in the last few years it's because this is a byproduct of the intense dedication to recruiting in state that we have. And, other teams have tried to go the JUCO route and find kids coming out of community college and get them in. But Bill Snyder just has a knack for it. We've had some outstanding guys, like I'm sure most people know of Jordy Nelson, and he was a walk-on at one point. And Bill Snyder coached him up to be where he is, or where he was, when he went into the draft. And he's had a phenomenal career out of that. Darren Sproles, you look at these guys that were told you're too small, you're not talented enough, your star rating isn't high enough. But Bill Snyder's been able to consistently coach above what everyone else would like to rate his class as. So I think it's better for K-State. And K-State fans are used to being underrated. So, with all these way too early rankings coming out for the top 25 going into the football season for this fall, people are a little bit like, wait a second. So we're actually getting up higher consistently within the top 25. And I think this recruiting class definitely helps for sure.